In this video, I will be ranking the episodes in Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Trials and Tribulations, the third installment in the Ace Attorney series. It was first released in Japan for the Game Boy Advance in 2004, and then worldwide for the DS in 2007. The only thing new in this game is the fact that this time, instead of having 4 episodes like its 2 predecessors, this game now has 5. Other than having that extra episode, this game doesn't add anything new to the gameplay for a different kind of experience from Justice for All. It does, however, make up for it with its stories. Like always, there are spoilers ahead, so make sure you play every episode in the game first before you go watch this video. So anyway, let's begin. Number 5, Recipe for Turnabout. Not really a surprise this would be at the bottom, but there are good things to note about it at least. First, however, we should get the main premise out of the way. Phoenix learns to his shock that 1 month ago, someone impersonated him to represent a client on trial for a poisoning incident, and as a result of the terrible defense, the client was found guilty. In order to set things right, Phoenix is tasked with representing said client to prove her innocence. The client is Maggie Bird, a former police officer who had just gotten a job as a waitress for a small French restaurant called Tribulations, which you'd soon find to be very oxymoronic once you taste the food. Issues with the characters have already been addressed, such as the flamboyant head chef Jean Armstrong, a French stereotype, and then there's the grumpy old man Victor Kudo, who has an interesting taste in waitress outfits. The issues in logic have also been addressed. When it comes to that, I have 2 major problems. First off, it's been a month since the initial trial. Why didn't Phoenix hear about this sooner? Second, it's about the imposter himself, and discovering how he impersonated you. Yes, the opening cutscene shows the imposter having the same skin tone as Phoenix, but when you meet the imposter, his skin is more Native American in tone. Then there's the fake badge made of cardboard. How did this fool anybody into not calling a mistrial? To be fair to this case, it does have enough dark twists and backstories, and it establishes a character trait about Godot that will be further expanded later on. But I can't really call it a great case because of the flaws in logic that surround the otherwise promising premise. Number 4, Turnabout Memories. The first episode of the game is a flashback, and one of 2 very important episodes to understand before the game's finale. It's set during Phoenix's college years, and he is accused of the murder of a pharmacology student named Doug Swallow. To his defense is his future mentor Mia Fey, taking on her second case as an attorney after her trial 1 year prior left her traumatized. Don't worry, we'll learn all about that trial soon enough. For now, enjoy a good amount of time spent on younger Phoenix sneezing and coughing, and even crying. This guy would then go on to be a renowned lawyer. Obviously, this episode introduces us to the demoness in disguise known as Dahlia Hawthorne. At first, she seemed unassuming and sweet, but as we quickly learned, she and Mia had actually met once before. Again, we'll learn about that trial soon enough. But anyway, Turnabout Memories is a great tutorial case that does a lot better with familiarizing people with how the game works than something like, say, The Lost Turnabout. Though I do wish they didn't have Mr. Grossberg talk about his hemorrhoids so often. And anyway, this is a very neat way to show us how Phoenix and Mia first met, and the ultimate push that made Phoenix take up the job as a lawyer. But of course, there's some information in this episode that'll be important later. Number 3, Turnabout Beginnings. This is the penultimate episode of the game, and it documents Mia Fey's first trial, about a year before she defended Phoenix Wright. 5 years prior to that first trial, Terry Falls had been arrested and convicted for the kidnapping and murder of 14-year-old Dahlia Hawthorne thanks to the testimony of her older sister Valerie. 5 years later, Terry Falls escaped from the prison bus after it got into a crash and made for Dusky Bridge where the kidnapping took place, but was soon put on trial for the murder of the woman whose testimony put him away in the first place. But Mia wasn't the only rookie in the courtroom. This is also the legal debut of Miles Edgeworth as a prosecutor, so you'll get to see a bit of his underhanded tactics at work. If the name Dahlia Hawthorne sounded familiar, you'll know right away that she was never really dead, which would only be confirmed further once you see the witness under the alias Melissa Foster. This is also the only case in the main series I can name where the culprit gets away with her crime. In this instance, it's when the defendant drinks a poison he swore to drink if he ever lost trust in Dahlia. The defendant's suicide made it impossible to render a verdict, and the trial scarred Mia badly. And with her aide Diego Armando being the only one to console her and giving her some sound advice. The only time a lawyer can cry is when it's all over. Thankfully, Dahlia would end up getting her comeuppance a year later, which we already know about. Both of these episodes are very important to understand for the finale, and they both had great build-up as well. Number 2, The Stolen Turnabout. To begin the continuation of Phoenix's journey for real, 7 months after the On Guard case, Adrian Andrews, who was Matt On Guard's former manager, now runs an exhibit of Karayan sacred treasures in a fancy department store called Lordly Taylor. But one of the treasures, the Karayan sacred urn, was reportedly stolen by the Phantom Thief Mask to Mask. Prime suspect of the theft is Raw Delight, who had apparently turned himself in, claiming to be the Phantom Thief. Defending him sounds totally insane at first, but an even bigger obstacle is the game's main prosecutor, Godot, a coffee-loving poet that drinks no more than 17 cups in any given trial. Oh, and he won't hesitate to throw it in your face if your assessments go off kilter. Yes, first a prosecutor that whips you, and now one that throws coffee in your face. For the first half of the case, it's pretty refreshing to actually be playing a case where the charge isn't murder for once. This time, it's grand larceny. But upon establishing an alibi for the defendant proving that he couldn't have stolen the urn, it turns out that same alibi leaves him accused of murder. That's actually pretty incredible. You think it's completely different, and then the game turns things around to give you yet another murder to solve. Then when you go to solve said murder, you also allow the enactment of the double jeopardy law, where an individual cannot be tried twice for the same crime. Though a couple questions remain. What was the murder weapon, and how did the 7-branch sword come to be bent if Lou Gaffney was never hit with it? We never get to figure out the answer to either of those questions, but that's kind of all I can really note with the episode. Otherwise, it's a very fun and clever episode that shakes things up a little. Number 1, Bridge to the Turnabout. The finale for the game is fascinating to say the least. It takes place in a spiritual training ground high up in the mountains, where Maya planned on furthering her spiritual powers by braving the cold. The only reason Phoenix agreed is because he saw a familiar face in a photo in the magazine. It is at Hazakura Temple we meet Elise Donham, a mysterious yet famous picture book author. But subsequently that night, she is found dead in the temple courtyard, and Sister Iris, the young lady that caught Phoenix's attention, is suspected of foul play. Much like The Stolen Turnabout, this episode shakes things up a little in the first half. While going out to call the police, Phoenix notices the bridge having caught fire and runs across to check on Maya, but he falls through the burned planks and into Eagle River below, where he sustained a cold and is put on bed rest. In his place, Edgeworth comes back to America to momentarily represent the defense, just like he wanted to when he was a kid. Isn't that great? Then we take control of Phoenix for the rest of the episode, and as we learn more about Iris and even Godot, we come to find that this whole case, and well, let's be honest, Godot himself, is pretty complex. It's borderline bonkers in almost every aspect. But in the end, the episode is a satisfying conclusion that very neatly wraps up the original trilogy. I especially love that last scene between Phoenix and Iris. Such a bittersweet thing, but it's worth all the trouble. That's all for this video. How would you rank these episodes? Be sure to post your rankings in the comments below. Thanks for watching.